Here are the best and the worst weapons to use in Season 19 of Apex Legends. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, not going to get technical with numbers and stats, and basing all of these picks solely off my own opinion and how I feel when I'm using them. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these picks down in the comments. So, kicking things off in the bottom of D tier is of course the mandatory P2020. This gun is not going to compete with anything else, only if it's going up against another P2020. It's definitely the worst gun in the game and a last resort kind of weapon, and I'm sure you're going to pick up anything else instead of it just to get it out of your hands. Next in D tier is the charge rifle. Ever since it's had its changes, it went from one of the easiest weapons to use to one of the highest skill weapons to use. Now don't get me wrong, this thing can do some damage and has got me out of some sticky situations, but it's all about good timing, and a lot of the time you don't have time for that. Apex is a very fast-paced game, and I would much rather have a more reliable sniper in my hands that can shoot instantly rather than having to charge up to shoot. Moving on to C tier, in last place I've put the Devotion. So honestly, I usually never pick this weapon up at all, only if I really need to, and the only time it's probably viable is when it has a turbocharger equipped, but coming across a turbocharger is far and few between. It has rapid firepower, but the slow charge up to fire at the start is its downfall. Next in C tier is the longbow. I feel like when I shoot the longbow, it has a weird delay in between its shots, and although it's the fastest sniper in the game, that feeling doesn't feel natural to me. Maybe some of you understand what I mean by this, but for this reason, it's just not something I'd be looking for. Next up is the Rampage. This season, I just don't think it's doing it for me. In previous seasons, it's definitely felt better, but there's something about it that I just can't put my finger on. The Rampage is definitely good once you get a thermite into it and can lay down some serious firepower, but its base weapon just can't compete with some of the other guns in the game. Up next is the Mozambique. This small but mighty weapon is deadly if you pick it up off drop, and at close ranges can annihilate white shields and get quick downs. But as you get further into the game, I do feel it starts to lack, especially against purple and red shields, and for that reason I put the Mozambique in C tier. Another mighty shotgun that can be a force to be reckoned with in C tier is the EVA 8. As the quickest firing shotgun in the game, at close ranges this beast can melt opponents. The one thing I can say that lets it down is unless you're getting up close and personal, the EVA 8 lacks in the medium to long ranges, putting it at a disadvantage if you don't have an aggressive playstyle. Next is the RE45. Now this little beast, in my opinion, is another great weapon to get your hands on off drop. With a quick fire rate and manageable recoil, it can melt opponents quick, but as you get into the later stages of the game, it starts to drop off, and I'd be looking to replace the RE45 with something a bit more beefy like the R99. Next up in C tier is the Vault. Before anyone might disagree, I would have put the Vault up higher on the tier list if it wasn't in the crafter right now. But as it's in the crafter, I put it down in C just because I'd rather not spend my crafting points to get it. I'd rather get a couple of extra batteries or other attachment for my guns, and for that reason I feel it can remain in C tier for now. Another gun that's sadly in the crafter that I would have put higher is the old faithful R301. Although this gun might not be the most powerful, it's got a nice and easily managed recoil which can allow you to put consistent damage on enemies with ease. Like the Vault, it would have gone higher up on my tier list, but as it's in the crafter it will also stay in C tier for now. Coming in second place in C tier is the Triple Take. This season I've been using it a little more than I have done in previous seasons, and I must say it can put down some seriously heavy shots, and it doesn't feel like it's got too much bullet drop in the medium to longer ranges. It's not my go-to marksman rifle, but definitely worth using in the meantime while I'm looking for something like the G7. And last but not least, first place in C tier is the 3030. This gun has a very similar feel to the Triple Take, and I suppose you could argue that they are the same, but that's just my personal opinion. What makes the 3030 slightly better than the Triple Take in my opinion is the fact that when equipped with the Skull Piercer hop-up, it can outgun the Triple Take if you can hit those headshots. Moving on to B tier, and in last place I have the Havoc. Like the Devotion, it does have a slow build up to fire speed, but a little quicker and a bit more manageable. In the closer ranges it can fry, and for that reason I do feel like it's best to use off drop. Personally, I wouldn't use it for medium to longer ranges, but if you can control that recoil, I'll tip my hat to you. Third place in B tier is the Spitfire. The Spitfire is great for consistent rate of heavy fire which feels like it's never ending, and with the 2x bruiser sight is very manageable in terms of recoil. If you can hit your shots with the Spitfire, it can easily mow down squads and has saved mine and my teammates' asses more than once. Second place in B tier is the Alternator. The Alternator, I feel, is the nice medium ground between the RE45 and the likes of the Karl or the R99. With a nice steady rate of fire, you are able to farm damage off your enemies while staying on target and being agile at the same time. The Alternator is definitely a top pick for many people, and if you get the disruptor rounds on this bad boy, I would even go as far as saying it would belong in A tier. First place in B tier is the G7 Scout. Hopefully I don't get too much stick for putting this gun in B tier, but I just think in this season and my playstyle, I feel like there are better weapons than it in A tier. But don't get me wrong, this is my favourite marksman rifle and is so good for farming damage at medium to long ranges and can help you hold positions that may be desirable for other teams. The base weapon does have terrible line sights, but that's the only bad thing that I can say is going for it. Okay, so moving on to A tier now, and I honestly think that all these guns are just as good as each other in their own unique different ways, but coming in last place in A tier is the Sentinel. By far my favourite sniper rifle in the game next to the Kraber. Using this gun with iron sights feels just as good as using it with sights, and not only can it deal great damage from a normal shot or a charged up shot, it's great for all ranges, close, medium and long, and I love running the Sentinel with the R99 or Karl as it's a very versatile type of loadout. Next up in A tier is the Nemesis, one of the best assault rifles in the game right now. Its 3-round burst hits hard, and I also like the way you can hold down your mouse or controller to shoot without tapping the trigger. It's not as powerful as it was last season, but very viable right now in this season. The Hemlock is next up, and I feel it's slightly better than the Nemesis just because I prefer how the Hemlock feels. Maybe some of you can agree and maybe some of you might disagree. They are both good guns nonetheless, and I find it hard to pick which one when different of the other, but definitely a top pick for this season. Next is the Flatline, which has really grown on me for this season. And I think it's because I was trying to fill the gap of not having the R301 and the ground loot anymore. But I've seemed to get my head around its harder recoil pattern to master, and now has become one of my favourite ARs in the game. It hits hard and feels very satisfying to get kills with. Up next is the Mastiff, which I do enjoy using, and again that's my personal take because I love shotguns, so that could just be me being biased. I do think it's a little slow, but nothing a bolt equipped can't fix. Its range really isn't too bad either. I've been pushing the range of it lately in my games and impressed of the range it can actually cover. It's good for stopping enemies peeking corners, and of course it's best in close range scenarios. Now, next in A tier, my favourite shotgun in the game, and probably everyone else's as well, is the Peacekeeper. This shotgun is a beast through and through. I'm pretty much running it as my secondary in every game right now, and equipped with the disruptor rounds, it dominates. Going up against it can be scary, so I'd much rather be the one using it. Next up in third place of A tier is the R99. The R99 has a super fast fire rate, which can't be rivaled, and can one-clip enemies with ease and melt red shields, putting the enemies on the back foot, allowing your squad to take advantage. One of the best SMGs in the game right now by far. In second place I have the Karl SMG. Some prefer the Karl and some prefer the R99. I feel they both are just as good as each other, but I'd personally go with the Karl over the R99, just for that tiny bit more ammo and a little more controlled fire rate. That's just my personal opinion, but these guns are both insane. Now for the best gun in A tier, it's no doubt going to be the L-Star. This season the L-Star is dominating with its high damage output and not needing to reload if used correctly. It might be a little tricky for some to get used to, but once you have the basics down for this weapon, it's undeniably the best gun you can pick up off the ground this season. Moving on to S tier, which I put all of the care package weapons in, as these are all the best weapons in the game hands down. From last to first, it would have to be the Bocek, the Kraber, the Wingman and the Prowler. These 4 guns are all overpowered, and rightly so. It's always worth going out of your way to try and get one of these weapons. Alright guys, so that's my weapons tier list for Season 19 of Apex Legends. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to leave it a like, let me know your thoughts and feelings on my picks down in the comments, and subscribe for more. Let's hit 2,000 subscribers before Christmas. I also have a community Discord if you fancy joining, and if you want to become a channel member for exclusive badges and emojis for my live streams, I'll put both of those links down in the description. Hope you all have a nice day or evening, and I'll see you all next time.